What happens when a man in scuffed boots walks into a den of diamonds and deceit, armed only with the truth? Will he shatter their world? Or will their scorn break him first? The night outside London's Devonshire Grand was a spectacle of wealth, a shimmering mirage that cloaked the city's elite in gold. Gold-plated Bentleys purred at the curb, their engines humming like contented beasts, headlights glinting off the polished marble steps. Women in crystalline gowns, their silk trains whispering secrets, glided past red velvet robes, clutching champagne flutes that caught the light like captured stars. Their accents, sharp and refined, cut through the evening air, each syllable a testament to privilege. Inside, the annual charity art gala, a cathedral of ambition, ego, and brushstrokes priced beyond reason, thrummed with anticipation, its opulence a carefully curated illusion. Across the street, Keanu Reeves stood alone, a shadow against the golden glow. His boots, scuffed from years of honest wear, rooted him to the pavement. A navy jacket, lint-flecked at the collar, hung loosely on his frame, and a faded baseball cap shadowed eyes that had seen too much and spoken too little. He waited, patient as stone, until the entrance line thinned, then crossed the street with deliberate steps, his heart steady but his senses razor sharp, toward the gilded double doors. If you're excited to hear how this story unfolds, drop a yes in the comments. Let us know you're still with us. In the opulent lobby, Emma Stone, the Gala's formidable hostess, spotted him instantly. Her crimson gown clung to her like armor, its fabric catching the chandelier's glow, and her smile was a blade dipped in honey. Sweet but deadly. "Excuse me, sir," she called, her voice syrupy yet edged with venom, stepping before him like a sentinel guarding a sacred realm. The kitchen entrance is around the back. Keanu paused, his expression unreadable, a calm lake beneath a gathering storm. Slowly, he reached into his pocket and produced a silver-edged invitation, embossed, official, impossible to forge. Before we jump into the next part of the story, let us know where you're tuning in from by dropping a comment. We love connecting with viewers from all around the world. Emma took it with two manicured fingers, as if it might stain her pristine hands. Her laugh was sharp, theatrical, a performance for the onlookers lingering nearby. "These still exist?" she said, her eyes raking over his thrift store jeans, plain black t-shirt, and worn boots, her disdain as palpable as the perfume clouding the air. "I told the team to stop sending physical invites." "Well, never mind." She glanced over his shoulder, half expecting a prank crew to leap out, cameras flashing, shouting, "Gotcha!" None appeared. "I'll need to confirm this with the registry," she said, turning on her heel before he could respond, her stilettos clicking like a metronome. "Wait here. Don't touch the art." Keanu stood still, his silence louder than her scorn. He didn't fidget or protest, his presence a quiet defiance that seemed to unsettle the air. When Emma returned, her smirk was reluctant, her eyes cold. "It checks out," she admitted, her tone sharp as shattered glass. "But next time, do consider dressing appropriately. Our guests are sensitive to appearances." She stepped aside, barely, as if hoping he'd slink away. Humiliated. He didn't. He walked into the ballroom, and the atmosphere shifted, a ripple of unease spreading through the crowd. Conversations faltered, eyes flicked toward him, then darted away, as if his presence was a stain on their perfection. Laughter sparked in corners, soft, cruel, pointed. A woman clutching a $20,000 handbag whispered to her companion, "Security's getting lax, isn't it?" A server, balancing a tray of champagne, snorted under his breath. "Guest dress codes are optional now." Emma, now stationed beside the towering champagne fountain, murmured just loud enough for him to hear. There's always one who sneaks through the cracks. Keanu didn't flinch. His gaze swept the room, cataloging faces, camera angles, and the centerpiece of the gala, sunset number 7, a supposed masterwork bathed in reverent light, its orange smear of a dying sun drawing hushed admiration. He knew the truth. The original hung in a private villa outside Marrakesh, its vibrant strokes etched in his memory from a visit 2 years prior. This was a forgery, wrong canvas weave, too symmetrical, a hollow imitation masquerading as genius. He took a glass from a passing tray, sipped slowly, and moved to a marble column at the room's edge, fading into the shadows, exactly where he wanted to be. Emma watched him from across the room, her eyes narrowing to slits. In her world, a man who didn't beg for acceptance, who stood unbothered by her barbs, was dangerous, a crack in the flawless facade she'd built. The ballroom glittered like a curated mirage, its chandeliers casting golden warmth over floor-length gowns, diamond cuffs, and art valued more for its price tag than its soul. Keanu stood by the column, still as stone, a silent rebellion against the spectacle. He wasn't here for the glamour of the flattery. He was here for the truth, the hidden fissures beneath the surface. Servers moved like clockwork, their trays gleaming, and every few minutes, someone glanced his way, furrowed their brow, and returned to their Perrier-Jouet, dismissing him as an anomaly. Emma's initial sneer had done its work, labeling him an outsider, erased from their social calculus. He preferred it that way, invisible yet omnipresent, a ghost in their gilded world. A man in a velvet blazer passed, muttering to his date in a lilting Irish accent. Some actor wannabe, no doubt. Throw a pound at charity, and they'll let anyone in. Keanu's eyes drifted to sunset number 7. Its exaggerated brushstrokes worshipped like scripture by a hovering crowd. He raised his glass as if admiring it, but his gaze slid upward to the balcony, where a one-way mirror reflected the ballroom's brilliance. Behind it, Emma stood, her silhouette sharp and commanding, handing a flash drive to Michael Carter, a Turkish dealer in an expensive suit with cheap posture. Keanu had crossed paths with him before, Monaco, where he'd moved $6 million in silent lots, Prague, where a journalist trailing him vanished mid-trial. His pulse quickened, a faint drumbeat beneath his calm exterior. A waiter passed, and Keanu stepped forward. Too close. The tray tipped, red wine splashing across his shirt, a crimson bloom on black cotton. "Oh, I'm sorry," the server stammered, eyes wide with panic, his hands trembling as he fumbled for a napkin. Emma's voice cut through the air like a whip. "Oh, dear, what is it with you tonight?" She glided closer, her face a mask of false sympathy, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "Some of us dress properly for events like these." Keanu met her gaze, unflinching, his eyes steady as granite. Her smile faltered for a heartbeat, a crack in her armor. Leaning in, she whispered, her breath hot with malice, "Enjoy your moment, whoever you are. Don't get any ideas about being important." Keanu held her stare a second too long, his voice low and deliberate. "Just enough." She turned away, satisfied, the performance resuming, her confidence restored. But Keanu caught it, the faint scent of Nerolian wax, a signature tied to an Istanbul auction scandal the previous spring. His fingers brushed the micro recorder in his pocket, thumbing its edge, one thread pulled. He thought, let's see what unravels. Behind the one-way mirror, Emma's instinct screamed. Something about him was wrong, too calm, too still, too unshaken. She always trusted her gut, a finely honed weapon that had carried her to the top of this glittering empire. Tonight, it would betray her. Keanu slipped into a side corridor, the ballroom's jazz and clinking glass fading to distant echoes. The hallway, lined with framed portraits of past donors, was dim and hushed, a place where deals were struck, quiet, dirty ones that never saw the light of day. He pulled a device from his jacket, thin as a credit card, its surface matte and unassuming. A pulse reader. He waved it near a vent grate, and the signal spiked, a digital heartbeat confirming his suspicions. A hidden transmitter. The Gala wasn't just laundering money, it was transmitting encrypted data off-site, a web of secrets spun across borders. He pressed a button on his ring, its subtle click sending the trace to a silent room in Santa Fe, where a green light blinked on the Silver Monk's console. Phase 1 complete. Back in the ballroom, Emma scanned the crowd with the bored confidence of a queen surveying her court. But a ripple in the air unsettled her, a disturbance she couldn't name. That man hadn't flinched at her insults, hadn't crumbled under her gaze. She snapped to her assistant, a young woman teetering in heels too high for stealth. "Follow him." "Not closely." "He smells fear." The assistant obeyed, her steps unsteady, her eyes darting nervously. Keanu returned to the ballroom, the wine stain drying on his chest like a badge of endurance, a mark of his refusal to bow. He drifted to a lesser-known painting near the dessert bar, its muted colors overshadowed by the Gala's centerpiece. Michael Carter stood there, his powder gray suit pristine, his smile a dull knife. Keanu had seen him twice before, Monaco, Prague, always leaving a trail of shadows. He approached, casual, as if admiring the art. "Impressionist strokes, acrylic base," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "Not even trying." Michael turned, his smile tightening, eyes narrowed to slits. "You're very observant for someone so underdressed." Keanu raised his glass, the wine stain catching the light. "The wine's been aggressive tonight." Michael's gaze hardened. "Calculating. You're not with the gallery. Just a fan of authenticity." Keanu replied, his tone even but edged with intent. Michael chuckled, the sound cold and hollow. "And you think I care what's real?" "No," Keanu said, his eyes locking onto Michael's. "I think you care who's watching." He turned and walked away, leaving Michael blinking, a flicker of unease crossing his face. From behind a floral pillar, Emma watched, her heart ticking like a bomb. He knows something, she thought, her fingers flying across her phone, texting her security chief. "Isolate him before the auction." Keanu tapped his cufflink, a microlens flickering to life in his peripheral vision. Data scrolled, offshore accounts, names, stolen antiquities. This wasn't just an art scam, it was a global smuggling ring cloaked in diamonds and champagne. Emma wasn't hosting the gala, she was running an empire. And every glittering guest was complicit, knowingly or not. The MC's voice rang out, cutting through the buzz. "Ladies and gentlemen, please find your seats. The live auction begins in 5 minutes." Keanu stayed at the room's edge, half in shadow, scanning the setup, cameras trained on the podium, spotlights illuminating the forgeries, guests buzzing with anticipation. Above, Emma pressed a discreet button under her desk, triggering a ping in a server room below. "Phase 0, she whispered, her voice a serpent's hiss. A suited guard with a shaved head approached, his earpiece glinting. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to come with me." Keanu raised an eyebrow, calm as ever. "Why?" "There's been a concern. We prefer to speak privately." "Concern over what?" Keanu asked, his voice soft but unyielding. Before the guard could answer, the MC's voice boomed, strained and unnatural. "And now, our special guest, a man whose contributions to the art world inspire us, Mr. Keanu Reeves." Polite, confused applause rippled through the room. Guests whispered, "Who?" The spotlight swung, hitting Keanu like a punch, bathing him in harsh white light. Gasps spread like wildfire. The man in thrift store clothes, wine-stained and alone, stood exposed, a pariah in their perfect world. Emma, on the balcony, smiled cruelly, whispering into her headset, "Hold it on him. Let them see." The MC chuckled nervously, grasping for control. "Well, I suppose we've all been surprised tonight." A woman in the front row raised her phone, snapping a photo. Another hissed, "Is this a prank?" Keanu stood still, one hand in his pocket, unshaken, his eyes scanning the room, memorizing every face, every reaction. The guard stepped closer. "You're not cleared to leave yet." "Am I being detained?" Keanu asked softly, his voice cutting through the tension. "No, but we need to ask questions privately." Keanu reached into his jacket, and the guard flinched, hand twitching toward his belt. But Keanu simply handed him a folded napkin, red ink scrawled across it. "Check the frame of sunset number 7. Infrared." Then he smiled, calm and civil, and walked into the shadows of the exit hall, leaving the guard and half the gala frozen in place. Emma frowned from above. She'd made her move, exposed him to the crowd's ridicule, but he hadn't played his card. He hadn't crumbled. The corridor beyond was colder, its marble floors giving way to limestone, gold fixtures replaced by stark utility lights. Keanu moved with poise, not fleeing but withdrawing from their script, his steps echoing softly. Behind him, the ballroom roared back to life, laughter swelling, some mocking, some confused. Emma's voice buzzed over the comms, sharp and venom-laced. "Let him walk. The humiliation done. He won't come back." At the vestibule, ornate pillars loomed beneath a domed ceiling painted with cherubs, their eyes seeming to judge. Two security guards leaned by the doors, casting half-curious glances, unsure whether to intervene. Keanu paused at the threshold, the cold London air waiting beyond the glass. Then, silence, a thick, expectant hush rippled from the ballroom, faster than noise, heavy with anticipation. Keanu turned his head. Richard Gere stood at the main entrance, framed by the golden double doors like a portrait coming to life. His tuxedo was perfectly tailored, his silver hair slightly tousled, his face calm, but his eyes burning with purpose as they locked onto Keanu's. The crowd stilled, champagne glasses frozen midair. Phones rose like synchronized weapons, capturing the moment. Emma's voice hissed through her assistant's earpiece. "Why is he here? I uninvited him. Get him off the list." Too late. The MC's voice cracked with disbelief over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Richard Gere." Gasps echoed, sharp and electric. Emma sprinted to the balcony railing, her heart jackhammering beneath her diamond brooch, her breath catching. "No, no, no." Richard strode forward, not toward the crowd or the stage, but toward Keanu, his steps measured, commanding. They locked eyes. No smiles, no greetings, just a shared understanding forged in unspoken trust. "Took you long enough," Richard said, his voice low, a trace of amusement in it. Keanu smirked. "Barely. I had to be sure." Richard turned to face the stunned ballroom, now packed to the aisles with murmuring donors and whispering elites. "Let's go ruin a few lives," he said, his tone light but laced with steel. And he stepped into the light. Keanu followed. And with every step, the illusion cracked. Guests turned to stare, phones trembling in their hands. Whispers morphed into names. "Wait! Is that Richard Gere with him? Who is that man?" At the center of it all, Emma stood frozen at the top of the stairs, lips parted, fingers clutching her champagne flute as if it could save her from drowning. It wouldn't. The real show was beginning, and she was no longer directing it. The ballroom was quiet but alive, vibrating with a tension that prickled the skin. Richard's presence was a force, commanding without effort, his grace a stark contrast to the chaos brewing beneath the surface. Keanu, a step behind, had shed the invisibility that once cloaked him like armor. His head was high, the red wine stain on his shirt no longer a mark of shame but proof of his endurance, a badge of his refusal to bend. Emma stood near the stage, her glass raised but forgotten, her manicured fingers twitching against the stem as she calculated her next move, her mind racing to salvage her empire. She turned to the MC, whispering sharply, "Cut the mic. Say nothing." But the MC hesitated, caught in the crossfire of money and power, his hands trembling as he gripped the podium. Richard didn't ask permission. He climbed the stage, took the microphone from its stand, and faced the sea of designer dresses, glittering watches, and anxious stares. His voice was calm but piercing, cutting through the room like a blade. "I wasn't planning on speaking tonight," he said, his words unadorned, stripped of theatrics, "but I couldn't stand by when a man I respect was ridiculed in a room he helped fund." Gasps rippled through the crowd. A man in the front row lowered his camera, his face paling. Emma's lips parted, her breath catching. "Shut it down," she hissed into her earpiece. "Kill the feed." But it was too late. "I've attended many events like this," Richard continued, his gaze sweeping the room, lingering on sunset number 7, its false glow mocking the crowd's reverence. "Some are about art, some about legacy. This one is about deceit." He turned to Keanu, who stepped forward, his presence quiet but unyielding. Keanu reached into his pocket and held up a flash drive between two fingers, its matte surface catching the light. "This contains proof of a laundering scheme," he said, his voice low but unshakable, each word landing like a stone in still water. "Transactions, offshore accounts, forged appraisals. It started with fake paintings. It ends with real prison time." Emma's face drained of color beneath her flawless foundation. She forced a smile, her voice rising in a desperate bid for control. "This is absurd. Mr. Reeves has no authority here. He's not even on the guest list." Richard cut in, his tone sharp. "No, but he was on the donor list, quietly. For 3 years, he funded the restoration of the Burnwell Gallery, the refugee arts program in Greece, and tonight's entire catering bill," Keanu added, his voice steady. "I even paid for the security." Ironically, laughter broke, nervous and sharp, a crack in the room's composure. Emma's eyes darted to her guards, but none moved. Her power, once absolute, shattered with a single sentence, a single alliance. The illusion was gone, and the ballroom wasn't laughing anymore. It was watching her burn. The lights dimmed without warning, plunging the room into a murmur of shadow and confusion. A screen, previously disguised as part of the minimalist decor, lowered from the ceiling with a soft mechanical hum. Guests turned, curious, unsettled. Keanu raised a small remote and clicked once. The screen flickered, then burst to life. First, a still frame, sunset number 7 under a thermal lens, its paint glowing unevenly, layers betraying inconsistencies invisible to the naked eye. Then, a split screen, the real sunset number 7 in a Moroccan collection, its brush pressure distinct, its canvas stretched differently. An artist's watermark hidden beneath the forged signature. Gasp bloomed across the crowd, sharp and involuntary. The scene shifted to security footage, grainy but unmistakable. Emma in her red gown, standing in her penthouse office, her voice crisp and damning. "Sell it for 1.2? I don't care what it's actually worth. Just move it before the Turks start asking questions. Tell Michael to wipe the invoice trail," a man's voice replied. "And the donation ledger?" Emma's response was cold. "Fabricated. Make up 3 charities, something sad. Children, animals, whatever. No one checks." The audio faded, and the screen went black. The ballroom didn't move, didn't breathe. Emma stood like a statue, cracked at the spine, her glass trembling in her hand. This was taken out of context. She stammered, her voice cracking. The queen reduced to a cornered pawn. Keanu stepped into the light, his presence quiet but towering. "You told me I didn't belong here, that I should be mopping floors," he said, his voice soft but cutting. "But tonight, I was in the mirror. You just didn't like what you saw." A single clap broke the silence. Tentative, then another, then dozens, some half-hearted, some ashamed, some loud and cathartic, a release of guilt and awe. Emma's eyes darted, searching for allies. But her guards had stepped back. Her assistant had vanished, and the MC wouldn't meet her gaze. A man in a dark gray suit moved forward from the back, his Interpol badge visible. "Emma Stone," he said clearly, his voice carrying across the room. "You're under investigation for fraud, tax evasion, and art forgery." Emma stumbled, her heel catching on the stage's edge, her arms flailing as she fought to regain balance. No one stepped forward to help. No one reached out to steady her. The queen had lost her crown, and her court had abandoned her. She pulled her shawl tight, as if it could shield her from the truth, and muttered, "This is a misunderstanding. I'm a patron. I've donated more than any of you. I built this," but the room had stopped listening. Phones were out, live streams rolling, headlines writing themselves in real time. Sarah Johnson, a curator in a velvet green dress, rose slowly, her elegant frame trembling with emotion. "I owe someone an apology," she said, her voice breaking as she looked at Keanu. "Earlier, I laughed. I said he didn't belong. I was wrong." She turned to the crowd, her eyes glistening. We all were. Keanu nodded once, quiet, accepting, his face betraying no triumph, only closure. Others stood, one by one, their murmurs of regret swelling into a ripple of acknowledgement. Some whispered to each other, heads bowed, others clapped softly. Not for show, but for redemption. A fragile attempt to reclaim their dignity. Emma was led through the aisle, her steps stiff, her chin trembling, mascara streaking down her face like tears of ink. A man beside her whispered, just loud enough, "You always said justice was for the poor. Funny how it finds the rich, too." Her eyes burned, but she didn't respond. At the door, she turned one last time, searching the room for a single loyal face. There was none. Keanu sipped from a fresh glass of water, the wine stain on his shirt now dry, barely visible under the softened lights. Richard joined him, slipping his hands into his pockets, his silver hair catching the glow. "Well," he murmured, a trace of a smile on his lips. "You always liked an entrance. I prefer a good exit." Keanu half smiled, his eyes distant. "She was right about one thing," he said. "I didn't belong here." He looked around at the stunned guests. The art, the glittering fiction now crumbling. But maybe that's what made it work. Richard nodded slowly, his gaze thoughtful. Sometimes it takes a stranger to break the silence. They turned and walked toward the exit, their steps unhurried, the golden doors opening on their own. The cold London air wrapped around Keanu like a quiet reward, crisp and grounding. No applause, no confetti, just the distant hum of city traffic and the soft echo of their footsteps on the marble steps outside the Devonshire Grand. A discreet black car pulled up. Simple, unassuming, no tinted windows or limousine grandeur, just enough to disappear with dignity. Richard paused at the door, his eyes scanning the night sky. "You know," he said, "you could have ruined her the moment you walked in." Keanu looked up, a single star blinking through the city's haze. "Yeah," he said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of choices made. "But if I had..." They wouldn't have seen themselves in her. Richard smiled, slow and knowing. You gave them a mirror. No, Keanu replied, stepping into the car, his voice barely above a whisper. I gave them a choice. The door closed, and they vanished into the night. Inside the ballroom, the final frame of the evening lingered on the massive screen. A quote projected in soft white letters. Character is what you do when no one is watching. Integrity is what you do when everyone is. Guests remained, some frozen beneath that light, their reflections caught in champagne glasses. Some deleted their live videos, erasing their complicity. Others texted apologies. Their fingers trembling, a few simply stared, questioning the silence they'd chosen tonight. The room was full of silence, shame, and a slow, painful awakening. This wasn't a story about revenge, nor even about justice. It was about dignity, the kind that doesn't demand to be seen but changes the room the moment it stands tall. In a world that celebrates the loudest voice, Keanu walked in quietly, his boots scuffed, his heart resolute. By the time he left, the truth was the only sound anyone could hear. What would you have done in that ballroom? Would you have laughed, stayed silent, or stood up? Share your thoughts below and let someone know. Not all heroes wear perfect suits. Sometimes they wear red wine stains and leave the world cleaner than they found it. The story of Keanu Reeves at the Devonshire Grand teaches us powerful lessons for life. First, embrace authenticity. Keanu's unassuming presence exposed the Gala's hypocrisy, showing that true worth lies in integrity, not appearances. Stay true to yourself, even when others judge you. Second, courageously confront injustice. But with patience, Keanu didn't lash out. He gathered evidence and chose the perfect moment to reveal the truth, reminding us to act thoughtfully, not impulsively. Third, lead with humility. His quiet dignity inspired others to reflect and change, proving you don't need to be loud to make an impact. Finally, stand by those who stand for what's right, as Richard did, reinforcing the value of loyal allies. Apply these by living honestly, speaking up against wrong, and uplifting others without seeking applause. Let's choose integrity over illusion every day. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe to join us in exploring more tales of truth and courage. Share your thoughts below. How will you apply these lessons? See you in the next video, and have a wonderful day.